We need to talk about Kevin. But first, this, of course, is Daily Persuasion, and I am not Kevin. I am Joshua Lisec, the New York Times bestselling author and co-author, ghostwriter of more than 90 nonfiction books on all manner of topics, and a certified professional hypnotist. It's through my unique blend of experiences I curate current events and teach you how to better influence the VIPs of your life and career. Now we're going to talk about Kevin. But first, I want to again remind you of this all-important book, almost 50 years old now, called The Structure of Magic. This book introduced neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, which is a sort of applied hypnosis model to understand how and why people impoverish themselves. Recently, I had a conversation with a fellow named Kevin. Kevin's profile on X, Kevin claimed to be a pro-Second Amendment, pro-freedom, pro-free speech American from rural Minnesota. And then Kevin replied to something I posted, which is my observation from the Apostle Paul, that when I became a man, I put away childish things, St. Paul says, in one of his epistles. And I furthermore observed that when an individual becomes a parent, they go from being liberal to being a conservative in much the same way when someone becomes a parent. And my friend at SuperPilot-ish on X said that there was a blue-haired in his province who, after she became a mom, her hair somehow immediately turned brown again, and she moved to a better neighborhood. See, parenthood, maturation, growing up, putting away childish things, you go from being a liberal to a conservative. And this is a real problem, by the way. This sort of childlike understanding of reality that libbies have, and that's what we're calling them. We're calling them libbies as a sort of a cue that we're dealing with effectively little kids. It's a diminutive, but it's not a disrespectful one. It's not an attacking, it's not a personal insult, but rather it's an observation. And we can continue to make this observation because the other day I saw an advertisement for The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And there is a comedian on there and cultural commentator who is saying that if we just taxed the 1% their fortune, we would solve all poverty in the world with that money. So what we do is we can apply the meta model of NLP from the Structure of Magic. Now, what is the meta model? The meta model is the following idea: that when we use words to talk, we're doing what's called a surface structure. But there is a deep structure behind it, and we have to interrogate each of the words to understand what's really going on. And this cultural commentator talked about, okay, solving poverty. So what do you specifically mean by solve, poverty, solve, and poverty? So there's three things right there. So what do you mean solve poverty? Does that mean there's no more poverty ever? Does that mean everyone has accessible to them an opportunity to raise themselves out of poverty? Is it the elimination of all measures of poverty, like communism, so that literally no one is poor because everyone is poor? So the poverty is relative. What do you mean by solve poverty? Is it about money? Is it about having enough? Is it about not going hungry? So see, the meta model of the Structure of Magic allows us to interrogate how someone's understanding of reality is impoverished, or I might also say childlike. And that is what Kevin did. So Kevin replied to at SuperPilot-ish in my quote post of him on X. And Kevin was saying how when I had a daughter, I recognized that he called us the MAGA group of pro-Trump Republicans, which was a sort of a strange, let's say, collection of descriptors. And then he said, I realize that's not how I want them to grow up, referring to his daughter. So I thought, wait a second, why would you use the pronoun them, there, they, when you've just said that your child is a girl? This person also identified themselves as being still a conservative, but the right left me, and I'm not welcome here. And the pro-Trump MAGA Republicans say that my ethics and morality are not welcome in the Republican Party anymore. Do the interrogation. What do you mean by they? Who specifically is the they? They told you that morals and ethics are not welcome. What specifically did they say? And then what specifically did they tell you? What specifically? Tell me the words. So Kevin then replied to me asking, doing the meta model application of NLP, interrogating his surface structure to try to find the deep structure. He posted a 4-year article from the Texas Tribune and said, well, for example, the Texas GOP kicked gays out. Okay, I go on and read the article, and it looks like at the 2020 Texas GOP State Convention, an organization called the Log Cabin Republicans, which is a known group of gay Republican men, the Texas GOP would not rent them a booth at the Texas GOP State Convention. So that is the deep structure, what I just specifically told you there, which I found in the article, by the way. And the article also pointed out that over the last 30 years, Republicans have moved left on cultural matters. But there is still more progress to make. So that goes specifically against what this character said, Kevin, if that's even Kevin's real name. I feel like we have a former Trump supporter hoax situation here, where the story of like the ex-conservative and the Trump regret, and the former MAGA, that's not actually a thing. I don't think that that's real. The conversation went on even further. So I look in the article, and there's nothing in here about ethics and morals and how he was specifically told this. So then we have so I interrogated his surface structure, asking for the deep structure. So he changes the subject to the Texas GOP. And the story itself goes against what he said, which again was under Trump, the MAGA Republican GOP group have moved to the right. When this article specifically says over the last 30 years, Republicans have moved leftward, but there's still some more progress to make. He had said they threw gays out of the Texas GOP. When specifically the article that he posted said the Log Cabin Republicans were not able to rent a booth at the 2020 GOP state convention in Texas. He claimed to be from rural Minnesota. Why is he posting an article? Is this a bot? I now ask myself. Well, it seemed to be a verified account, so maybe not. And the use of the pronoun switch from I had a daughter, and then they, them, their. It's possible that the person forgot which gender his hypothetical child was. And I'm now wondering hypothetical at this point. And then after I pointed this out, how the very same day he's saying all this to me, Kevin is, the famously flamboyantly gay man, Scott Presler, is being honored in the Oval Office with Donald J. Trump and Vice President JD Vance. And he's saying that gays aren't welcome. And I say this to him, and then he starts talking about how churches have been politicized. And everything in between has moved to the right. So everything in between, this fake story of gays being thrown out of the Republican Party or something. Okay. So as I'm interrogating his surface structure to try to find the deep structure according to the structure of magic, I'm finding someone who's willfully impoverished, as if he's trying to protect an identity or protecting a myth. So then he goes and says that he is disgusted by churches and that they should lose their tax exemption. So I say, which church specifically? And then he mentions how Reagan won the evangelical vote and they have betrayed his memory or something. Why are we talking about Reagan? So notice what's happening is we're moving from topic to topic. As it's like he's surface structure skipping, going quickly as I'm asking questions. This person would be a very bad client, by the way, for someone attempting to do NLP to help them. So this is a person who seems to be defending what I'm going to argue is a myth, the myth of this former Trump supporter, former conservative who claims he's a conservative. And he also switched his story up a few times. He was saying things like, I'm not able to be conservative anymore. I can't be on the right anymore. I'm not, but also like, I am still a proud conservative. So, and I have a daughter who's a they, them, there. And he didn't say that. He didn't say like, oh, my daughter has come out as genderqueer, non-binary, whatever. That wasn't part of the story. It was like a pronoun slippage because it's like a hypothetical when I say, ask a given Republican what they want to do. So in this situation, a given Republican is hypothetical, so I use the third person, which is what you do when you're referring to a hypothetical individual who doesn't exist in the specifics. You understand how that works, right? So this is my experience talking to this person. So then I said, well, conservative churches publish literature and pamphlets that voice support for conservative causes each election, and then liberal churches and organizations and denominations do the same, and no one's going after their tax exemptions either way. And I said, can you be specific on which church and what candidate, what specifically did you hear a pastor or priest say? Oh, you want me to spell it out for you? So what you're saying is you don't understand that. And then there was a laundry list of all the things that allegedly this group of MAGA, far right, former conservative Republicans are using all these labels thrown in there. And then saying how the United States under Trump has sold out the country to China and Russia, and letting China and Russia do whatever they want. So this is more surface structure skipping, going all over the place as quickly as possible. There's this and this and this. It was China, Russia, hoax, 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 China, Russia, hoax, hoax, hoax. Kevin was doing. And for each thing I asked for a deep structure, I tried to interrogate that. Then I was gentle and respectful. Kevin ran off to something else. And it was scatterbrained. And I realized this is how liberals talk. This is how liberals think. It's like whack-a-mole, but whack-a-hoax, where once you ask for their specifics around a claim, they can make a bizarre generalization. They'll say like, the right left me. And then I'll say, well, what specifically did they leave you on? And then he throws me a link, and then he's just going all over the place. So at this point, okay, you meet a lot of former liberals turned conservatives turned populists turned nationalists, right? I'm one of them. As I came of age, I became a cringe internet atheist, CIA, I like to say, former CIA. And of course, now I'm a base nationalist and populist. I'm so far beyond conservative. I don't believe in conservatism personally. I think conservatism is conserving liberal viewpoints, conserving liberal values. But if the liberal values brought you to here, of what use were the liberal values? Nationalism, populism are what is good for the nationalism, what is good for the nation, populism, people. What is good for the people of the nation for which we are responsible? That's nationalism. That's populism. So conservatives are focused on conserving liberal values or something. Like what? Like globalism, like globalization, like shutting down American factories because you can make it $1 a head cheaper in China with slave labor? That's what you're conserving? Really? Because that's what Reagan did. Plus the amnesty for all the illegal aliens. And by the way, they'll say like, oh, well, you can't, you got to be careful. It's only the criminals amongst the illegal immigrant population. Well, if someone trespasses, illegal immigration is in fact a crime. So every illegal immigrant is in fact a criminal. Are they not? Well, yes, that's technically correct. Yeah, but that's mean, Joshua. That's offensive. That's mean. Have some empathy. Be a good effing person. The right left me. That you were never on the right. And by the way, he posted a re-engineering, a reimagining of the right-wing meme showing the far left person who is like going crazy over to the left while everyone else, the stick figures, are staying in the center and the moderates in the right. And the left person at the end yells backwards, far right, fascist, which is correct because that person's much farther to the right than they are now. The left is going off to the left. I know I'm getting it backwards because of the screen here. So he posted a left-wing reimagining of that with the little character running off to the right, looking over to the left, shouting Rhino, which stands for Republican in name only. Wait a second. This is why left-wing memes don't work. The left can't meme. So you have a person going far to the right and then shouting at liberals, Rhino. That's not what Republicans do. That's not what conservatives do. ever at all, at any point, ever, period, forever. That's not a thing that happens. That's what Republicans call other Republicans who do anti-Republican things, who want amnesty for illegal alien criminals, for example. A Republican. That would be a Republican in name only. That would be a rhino. Ohio State Republican Party has a rhino problem, and that there are a lot of self-styled conservative Republicans who, in fact, advocate for left and even far left positions. But they're members of the Republican Party. They're not over there on the left and have always been on the left. Why would a Republican call a Democrat a rhino? Yeah, I don't think there's any such thing as a former conservative, an ex-conservative, former Trump supporter. I think it's all a hoax.